Our next speaker is Anusha M, I'm going to say. And Anusha is a PLDA design member. She's trained as an architect in her native India and then went on to study lighting design at Wismar in Germany. And she's currently a lighting designer with integrated lighting design. So Anusha, you're up.
My topic today is light, form, space, and order. This is about how we could derive lighting design cues from spatial ordering principles by studying Francis T. Kitchen's ordering principles from his book Light, Forms, Architecture, Form, Space, and Order. And the main inspiration is from understanding architectural composition, perceiving the dynamics of visual attention, searching for order and meaning in visual environment, and dissecting architectural forms to understand how they have been put together. So basically, to shape or paint spaces in light, you have to understand the architectural base canvas. The ordering principles are axis, that is the linear building, the spine of the building. Symmetry is a balanced organization about an axis. Hierarchy is degree of importance of any form. Rhythm is a pattern repetition. And datum is line, plane, or volume of reference in a built organization. Now, axis expresses linearity and movement, and it could have varying edge conditions and terminating points. For example, in this project, you can see that the lighting pattern interestingly breaks the rigidity of the axis and provides visual interest and focus. An axis can represent visual progression, so lighting has to complement movement in the axis. For example, in the project on the left, you see that the structure of the farm and the lighting is such a way that it points to the visual axis and it provides depth here. So axis will be center for any spatial organization, and it unifies the surrounding spaces. So it takes the top part in the visual hierarchy and also the lighting hierarchy. So lighting different layers in an axis would provide visual depth, as you can see in both projects. The next element we could talk about is symmetry. So axis can exist without symmetry, but symmetry cannot exist without an axis. And it can be either radial or bilateral symmetry. For example, in this project, the lighting is unifying the spatial character that is represented by the symmetry in the organization. So the lighting language has to match the symmetry. And in this project, if you can see that the axis will be the spine, and it will be the top in the lighting hierarchy, and then the surrounding spaces would follow it in terms of hierarchy. So in symmetry, the integrity of the built space is very important. Hierarchy is degree of importance of any form or space, or the role they play in a built organization. For example, in this project, the dome or the vertical spire takes precedence in terms of lighting and visual hierarchy, and the axis with little visual accents take the second place. And onto the left, it is more of a unifying symmetric organization where hierarchy kind of keeps its integrity. And onto the right, it is more of how you light different layers in a built space and bring in visual depth. So hierarchy could play different contrasting roles in different projects depending on the context. Datum is volume, line, or plane of reference. And for example, in this project, the spatial envelope, the roof structure, is being powerfully highlighted because it brings together and controls the organization, and it holds the organization powerfully together. Also in this project, for example, the dominant structure, ceiling structure, kind of is powerfully lit, and it kind of brings the spatial integrity of the whole retail space, and it holds it together. So the powerful highlight on it brings in the character to this organization. And these two are different examples of spatial envelope. Onto the left, it is more of wall highlight and the central focal element that brings in the complete configuration. And onto the right, it is more the dominant ceiling structure and the central water body that brings in. So it is a contrasting application of lighting in datum. In rhythm and repetition is pattern recurrence. In this example, it is varied proportions of rectangles that are being represented in a certain way in this courtyard that brings in very interesting visual depth and meaning to this whole space. And this is a very interesting light art installation. And it could also have a varied form of application. Onto the left, the hierarchy brings in a little bit of a contrast and repetition, and it brings interest even in a repetitive format. Onto the right, it is more of a unifying colonnade, and it kind of gives you visual anticipation. And when there is a break in the pattern, you can see the hierarchy there. So now, left and right are contrasting applications in facade 2. Onto the left, it is more of a very traditional application, and it just complements the repetition. Onto the right, it is more of a dramatic application representing a very contemporary style of architecture. So even in rhythm, so now in the analytical inferences, I'm just comparing and contrasting how different principles are applied. On the left, it is more of a symmetrical hierarchy, and it has different layers. On the right, it is more of visual accents at certain points that brings in a combination of an axis and hierarchy here. Now on the left, this is again, like I said, it is more of a unified, very symmetric, repetitive element. So it is very more unifying. And onto the right, it is more a dominant composition, where this roof structure is being highlighted very powerfully, and that holds the configuration. And here, where both symmetry and repetition comes into play, the hierarchy takes a role to bring in the visual depth and interest. And here, an element of contrast between the two repetitive elements is brought, which is brought in a very interesting perspective. And the whole idea of comparing spatial design principles to lighting design principles is that how to bring in spatial harmony and how to strike the right chord. You not only know what to light, but also you know what not to light, and maintain the integrity of architectural forms. Thank you.